There we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad, for pointing that out.
Cheers, everyone. We had an exciting day. Our septic died. Our well died. The new well got hooked up. When the drill rig came, it was very exciting, but when they actually hooked it up, that was even more exciting. And in order to redo the septic, we have to take some trees down, including our favorite tree. It was very sad to have that tree go down today.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough. Two major projects at the same time. Wow.
Yeah.
What are the odds of that? You know, our well got hit by lightning once. It just, at least that's what the person who came to look seemed to think. And so luckily our insurance covered it. We were so lucky. Oh my goodness.
That's good.
Yeah. We were thinking, it was years ago, but we're thinking, we haven't been here that long, or it'd be hard to believe our well had gone dry already. But anyway. Good afternoon. Good evening, Leslie, and good evening, Kate and Marianne.
Hi, I gotta write myself a note. Something.
Now I'm trying to find the report that we're reviewing tonight. I looked it over carefully, but I can't find it.
So the environmental reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all on the, hi Mark, those are all on the My Library pilot project webpage.
Great, thanks.
And then Mark, I'm gonna let you share your screen, or do you want me to share the reports and drive? You know, you can say scroll up, scroll down. When we get to it, we're gonna get to you in a few minutes. So how do you want to do it, Mark? Do you want me to let you share?
Yeah, you can take the wheel and drive things along here if you'd like. And
okay. All right. So I'll share the reports from our website when it's time. You can tell me which report to share, or well, we'll figure it out when we get there. Okay.
Sure.
All righty. Okay. Hi, Erica. Hi. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Hi, Savannah. Hi, Erica. Hi, Diane. Hi, Rita. Hi, Tim.
Erica and Mark are from OTO, O'Reilly, Talbot, O'Coon. That's the company that did all the work for us. So.
Welcome, Penny. Do we know if Melanie's able to join us? It's just 7:30.
Yeah, she should be.
Okay, great.
So Mark and Erica, we just have like one little piece of business we always do at the very beginning, just to go over our minutes from the last meeting, and then you guys will be on to answer questions and all of that. And then we'll have one other piece of business at the very end after you guys are done.
Okay.
Great, and Melanie is here.
Okay. So do we have everybody? It looks like it.
It looks like
and
we
at
do.
7:30. That's great.
Perfect.
Wow.
Okay. All right, Marianne, you want to start with your
Okay. Hi, everybody. Here we are on Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021 at 7:31 p.m. meeting once again on Zoom, having this virtual meeting due to the pandemic. And if people are unable to attend virtually, they can view the recording, which will be posted with the town clerk's office until the minutes are posted. And this meeting's being recorded for those purposes. So
okay.
Thanks
Mark,
for being here.
Yep. Mark and Erica, I'm co-chairs of the trustees with Kate Sell. The great thing about Zoom is you can see everybody's names. So the first thing we just have to do is review the minutes from last time, and then we can go right into the presentation and questions and answers. And so I did find a couple of little minor things, Melanie. When you had the guess, Marianne was at the very end. And she's already up there as the library director, so I wasn't sure if there was another Marianne. Okay. One other thing, let's see. Second bullet from the bottom. Comment forum trustee, I think you meant from. Is that right? Is that second bullet from the bottom? Do you see that? Or is it a question from a trustee or comment from a trustee, I think? From on the first page. Okay, and then the second page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, fourth one down. It was Meryl's comment. I didn't understand if it was meant to be a different word. She see 1, 2, 3. The fourth line down, it says, she said, this is the shortest money we'll ever have to acquire those items. I wasn't sure if that was, you know, I didn't understand what that meant. The shortest money we'll ever have to acquire those items.
Yeah, maybe I didn't explain that right. I'll just change it so this is the shortest money we'll ever
but what did she mean by shortest? What did she mean by shortest money?
That
shortest money? I don't know.
That it's
the least amount of money? I'm not sure.
Well, I think just use her words.
Yeah,
those were her words.
That was the exact word? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it just means that it's like, it's got, well, I can't explain it. I mean, okay. I thought I understood what it meant.
I just wasn't sure if that's what she really said. That's all I had.
I think Leslie can explain it though. He's had his hand up.
Can you use the little hand, because you know why that helps? Then you go right to the left and I know who's like next in line. Do you see it on your screen? There you go. Okay, go ahead, Leslie. Did you understand what Meryl was saying?
Yeah, she was saying this is the best deal we'll ever get from the state in terms of funding.
So maybe it was surest money?
No, well, whatever it was, money, shortest money, you know, she was making the comment, this is the best deal we'll ever get from the state.
Yeah, Okay.
I
All right.
can change it to that if that would be
I
clear.
assume that's what she meant. It just didn't make sense to me the way it was written. So that's all. Just for the record, I want to make sure we had it correct.
I had one small thing, source in the bullet above.
Oh,
Bill.
yeah, I got that.
You got
Yep,
that
I
already?
changed that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks. So wait, Michelle, you're sharing tonight and I'm doing tomorrow? I thought it was the other way around, but whatever.
Oh, I
it's
thought
fine.
you said, oh, you know, I might have gotten the days mixed up. It doesn't matter.
It's
I thought I
okay.
was doing tonight.
Yeah, go right ahead. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we'll start with our two guests, Mark and Erica. And Marianne, you're going to bring up whatever they want us to take a look at.
When they're ready, they can tell me what they want.
Yeah, and if you have
to share when they're ready.
If you have questions, make sure you use the hand function because then I know who wants to ask a question.
So we prepared two reports for the town. The first one is a phase 1 environmental assessment. This is up for the parcels that are behind the town hall, the Cooleyville Road parcels. That's assessment was performed in general accordance with good standard business practices and engineering practices. And the main finding of the assessment is we found no recognized environmental conditions as outlined in the ASTM E1527 standard, which is good news. I mean, you wouldn't expect to find much in a undeveloped, mostly wooded parcel such as that.
This is the report and it's on our website if people are interested in seeing it. It's hard to read like this. But if there's anything in particular that people have questions about, or you wanted to highlight, Mark, let me know and I can scroll around. Okay.
Okay. This report's based on, kind of 4 main steps. The first one is a look at federal and state regulatory databases to see if anything shows up listing the property as showing up on like Mass DEP's database for having a release of oil or hazardous material, or federal database for a location which may have generated hazardous waste. We didn't find anything too relevant with that. And then we kind of look into the history of the property, kind of looking at the general use of the property. Was the property always vacant? Was it ever for industrial use? And obviously none of that is true. The town provided us with some good information about the history of it being an old burial ground. It seems like the burial ground stuff was dealt with back in the 1930s. And, the center school was built and expanded into the playground expanded to where the burial ground was. Another part of this assessment, kind of an additional service that was included with this phase 1 environmental, was we collected a water sample to be representative of like a drinking water sample from an existing monitoring well on the property. That well is a 6-inch wide steel casing at the surface and drilled down into the bedrock. I believe it was 240 feet, if I'm not mistaken. We collected the sample, was clear. We tested it for a variety of contaminants, and they were all below Mass DEP criteria. The second report that we prepared for the town is a limited subsurface assessment, and that is for the 66 Leverett Road property. This was based on 10 soil borings drilled into the ground using a track-mounted drill rig. Erica was in the field that day, and she did most of the field work. The soil comes up out of the ground with the drill rig, and she screens it with a little field meter. And we selected soil samples for laboratory analysis based on our proposal. And most of the samples that we found were free of contaminants. One issue was found in the rear portion of the parcel. We found what appears to be some gasoline contamination. And that's outlined, discussed in the report. The key thing about this is the concentration that we detected in the sample requires reporting to Mass DEP unless you do other assessment or other things to be exempt from reporting.
I'm gonna pull up, there's a map that in here somewhere that shows the locations, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. So here's one. And so that this circle is the whole site, right? Or what is that circle where it says site?
Just kind of like just showing the area of the site. If you scroll down a little more, you'll kind of see the parcel boundary.
This one?
Yep, or the one above it.
Above it. Okay. All righty. So then this long rectangle in the middle is lot 032, and then you can see these. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. These blue dots. Well, to me, they look blue with their circles with a cross in them. They're white with a blue outline. And that shows where the soil borings were done. So there's this whole cluster up in the front, right around where the old garage was and where a new library would be placed. And then there's another cluster further back where it says B10, not another cluster, another circle. And then the one that had the gasoline is B9 all the way in the back, about halfway back from the road to the end of the parcel. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
The circle B9 was where we found the contaminated soil.
So all of the soil up in the front, that cluster of 1, 2, 3 of 8 borings, none of those had any contamination. Right.
Correct. The samples that we sent to the lab from those borings were free of contaminants.
Yeah. Okay. Terrific. All righty. Sorry to interrupt. I just thought people would like to see what you were talking about.
Tim, do you want to ask your question now?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot the gentleman's name who's speaking.
Mark.
Mark. I did not read these reports because I felt it would probably be over my head and I was going to rely on your help. Could you clarify for me? It sounds like 2 different types of tests were done for each location. Can you explain the different approach to each location for me, please?
We're comparing kind of like the lots behind the town hall to this lot?
No, it sounded like you used one type of test. You called it phase 1 for the lot behind town hall.
Yes.
And then the description of the tests for lot 032 was a different type of test. Is that correct? And why is each area using different types of tests?
A phase 1 is more of a paper exercise. There's no physical testing involved. We included the water sample as like an additional service as part of that phase 1. Over here on lot 66, this was an actual,
lot 032.
Or lot Yeah, lot 032, excuse me.
66 Leverett Road. It's
yeah,
fine.
66 Leverett Road, yeah. Here, we actually collected samples of the soil and sent them to a laboratory for chemical analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like Brad has a question.
So in describing lot 032, this second site, you mentioned that there was gas contamination found, and it's a good deal, what would that be, south of where the library would be sited. Would that, if that was an issue, even if that was an issue, would that have an impact on a building plan on the other end of the property?
I highly doubt it. It is an issue that, you know, you're going to have to address with either some more kind of things to see if it meets a regulatory exemption, or it'll have to be, DEP will have to be notified of this. But there's lots of guidance and documents out there. Petroleum contamination, such as gasoline, often doesn't migrate much more than 400 feet. And it'd be highly unlikely for the contamination to migrate from boring B9 way over to where the library is.
And am I right? What I believe you were saying is all those other test places showed nothing of concern. The only concern was that the gas in the middle of the property.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay,
That's correct.
Thank you.
And then can I point out that, so B9 is the location of an old Air Force tower. So there was a Air Force installation on that site, and there was a cement pad, and the Air Force had removed all of the topsoil in that area. So that is the likely explanation for why gasoline was found in that, or that's what we suspect. And Becky and I have already been in touch with DEP, and Becky is in touch with the DOD to communicate with them about cleanup or further investigation. It's all in the very preliminary stages.
Looks like Leslie has a question, and then Tim, do you still have a question? I know Melanie popped up. So do you have another question, Tim?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go with Leslie first because he's first in line.
Mark, I'd like to go back to the phase 1 environmental assessment on the area behind Town Hall. Who or what was the source of the location of that old burial ground or cemetery? Who was the source for that information?
That was Becky provided it with the user questionnaire. It was kind of a source, you know, they provided it, the town did.
And that source said that it was behind the existing town hall?
Yes.
Okay.
It was where town hall is now. So.
Say that again, please.
It was where town hall is now.
Where the cemetery is?
Yeah.
Was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I provided that information, and I got it from the Shutesbury Historical Commission. So.
Okay, and then Tim, your question, and then Melanie.
Mark, what would be the normal steps to proceed on lot 032 to correct the gasoline issue, make sure we're in government compliance so that if a library were built there, there would be no issues? What would be the various steps from here on?
I would first try and do a file review, see what you can get from the federal government. That may take time, but I would get that step going. It does appear that they may have some old documents from 1991 or 1992 when they kind of went back and investigated around their old radio tower installation. Next, we would probably recommend doing further assessment, you know, kind of get a better look, maybe a few more borings in the area of B9 or a test pit, you know, dig down to see what might be there. You know, maybe there's an underground tank or some source of this gasoline underground. And you're allowed under the regulations to, you know, excavate and remove up to 100 cubic yards of soil as remediation waste before the 120-day deadline. That deadline is like the reporting deadline when you have to report it to DEP. If this has already been reported to DEP and there's an existing release tracking number for it, then this excavation would have to be performed as a release abatement measure, which is just kind of a regulatory mechanism for performing remediation in Massachusetts.
And do you get some sort of a release or seal of approval from DEP? How does it work?
You would need to retain the services of a licensed site professional. These are people, private parties that have a license from DEP to kind of oversee remediation. And they would, you know, it kind of depends on where the assessment goes and what gets done. You have to prove that the remediation or the release to the ground presents no significant risk to receptors. You know, it's not impacting someone's drinking water well. It's not impacting a wetland. It's just contamination. It's deep underground. It's not a problem. And if you can demonstrate that it presents no significant risk as defined by the regulations, you can then move forward and file a permanent solution report with DEP.
And from your experience at this point, you suspect if all that was done, there really would be no issues? Is that your guesstimate?
We have one soil boring there with one soil sample. It's a heavily wooded and brushed area. It's hard to kind of see what's on the ground surface. You know, it really needs some more assessment before we can render that type of an opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Melanie, you have a question for Mark?
Yeah, I may have missed this. Mark, did you also do water testing on lot 32? I'm sorry, I take the notes and I might have missed this.
Yes, we did some water testing on lot 32. This is on the map that's shown on the screen right now where it says MW2D. That is where we collected a sample from an existing monitoring well. I believe these wells were installed in 2014 as part of some past project. And that sample was free of, you know, hazardous material type contaminants from pollution, but the water quality was not drinkable coming out of the ground from that sample. It was kind of turbid at the time and silty, and that affected the results.
And I just have a quick follow-up question. So am I correct that regardless of whether this is a site selected for the library, it needs to be cleaned up? Like the law requires that the town clean up lot 32. It can't just be left like that.
It requires some more work. You know, further assessment could prove that it meets the requirements for no significant risk.
Okay.
And then you can kind of just leave it. But that, you know, that there's more assessment that needs to be done.
I see. Okay.
The other option is if you do get some good records from the federal government that says what they did and how they did it, a licensed professional or DEP themselves could review that stuff and render an opinion that this is not a problem. But that's kind of a, you know, that's a little bit more of a long shot. It's relying on other, you know, regulatory agencies, and, you know, you got to find some good stuff from back in the day when the federal government was out here doing remediation of their former radio facility.
Great. Okay. Does that answer everything so far, Melanie? Are we ready to move on to Brad? Go ahead, Brad.
Given Tim's question, I wanted to ask mine again. So, assuming there is significant gas contamination in the middle of that property that needs remediation, that needs to be dealt with on a general statement for the property owner, does that have any impact for a building project in the front half of the property that's far away from that? Does the presence of an issue anywhere in the property, even if it was quite far from the library, have an impact on plans for the library?
I would, other than, you know, I don't know how it may affect, you know, the financial aspects of things, but I would say no, they're almost like it's completely separate. I would say you could build your library here and deal with this as a totally separate issue. They're far enough apart. It's not like the gas. It's unlikely that there's, you know, gasoline contamination in the footprint of the library or proposed library.
And the gas wouldn't have to be dealt with first? The library could go ahead separately from remediation of the gas issue?
Yeah, I think things could be, the library could be built first, and, you know, there's certain regulatory timelines of things. But I don't see any conflict between the two.
If they're regulatory timelines, that sounds to me like it still has to be dealt with. And what I'm trying to figure out is it totally separate? Can the library be built and then ignore what's happening, what exists in the middle of the property? Is that somebody else's job? Or does it have any impact now or in the future? Yes, Marianne?
It is definitely somebody else's job. So that is definitely outside of the scope of the library project, and it would be the town's job to deal with that test pit. So when we did the soil borings, originally the plan was to do soil borings just up on that front 4 acres, which was the site that we used before, and the town had done some cleanup of piles of debris that were on the site, and so since OTO was coming out to do soil borings up on the front, it made good sense to have them do soil borings in these places where the piles of debris have been cleaned up, just to get a fuller picture. It didn't make sense for them to come out on a separate contract on a separate day and do, a soil boring. Like, how many feet is that away? That's hundreds of feet away. So you know how many feet it is, Mark, from looking at it? So,
no, not at the moment.
No. Okay, but it's hundreds of feet from the library site. But it's the town's responsibility to address that. And if there were something in the front of the lot where the library project would be built, it would be the library's responsibility. And the library is also the town. But but they're two separate issues.
Okay. And then one other question, following up with what Melanie asked. So Mark, you mentioned that the water quality was not adequate for drinking. Is that something that can be, I'm just in the process of I just had a new well drilled on our property because the old well was not adequate. And so from your assessment, is that something that could easily be dealt with treatment, or is that enough to say this is not a buildable site?
I think it could be dealt with by treatment or some other physical working to this well. The well that we tested here is about 100 feet deep, which is, you know, it's deep, but not relatively not deep for drinking water wells. And it was, the sample was turbid. There was lots of bacterial growth in the water itself. And, you know, this water is stagnant. It's just sitting there in this well most of the time.
So a new well,
we
or
would
a deeper
recommend
well
to
might solve that.
Yeah, a deeper well, or even you know, we would recommend reaching out to, you know, someone that's a professional in this professional well driller. They may have methods that can, you know, clear it up by they pump it and they surge it and they just, you know, remove a couple thousand gallons from the well, and that may help. That may solve the problem. They can also do like a chlorine treatment. And you could address it by having this well connected to the building with water filters. And it's also,
okay.
If you look at the distance of where this well is compared to where the library may be situated, that's quite a long distance to run some pipe. You may want to consider having a well closer to the library that's deeper.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
A little more. Okay.
That helps.
Right, so I just want to say that that we tested this well and the well behind Town Hall because they were there. We never intended to use either of them, you know, whether we choose to put a library at Lot 032 or behind Town Hall. We didn't plan to actually use those wells, but we thought they were there and it was a good way to look at the groundwater. And what we were really looking for was, you know, was there at Lot 032, was there gasoline in the water? Was there PFAS in the water? And did you find you didn't find anything like that in this well. You didn't find any chemical contaminants in the groundwater at Lot 032. You're muted now, Mark.
Correct. I'm just pulling up the results on my screen here. Yes, it was. We did not find any volatile organic compounds, no PFAS detected, no PCBs. Like I said, it was really just, we found some bacteria. The water was turbid and off color. And the bacteria probably contributed to slightly high iron and manganese result. But I think those are issues that can be dealt with, or you know, a different well probably would not have these contaminants.
Okay, Tim and then Rita.
Thank you. I have a procedural question to anybody that knows the answer, probably somebody who went through this process in 2010. What is the Board of Trustees' responsibility in terms of site selection? And what are the town's responsibilities? Who actually picks the site in the end? Thank you.
So I would say that the Board of Trustees would evaluate the reports, evaluate the pros and cons of having a library sited on either location, and then make a decision about what they think is the best site for a library, and then make a recommendation to the select board. The select board has library site selection on their agenda for their meeting on Tuesday. And the select board has jurisdiction over town-owned property. So they're the ultimate decision makers.
Thank you.
And then of course, town meeting decides, this is all informing a grant application, which would then be voted on at town meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, Rita.
So my comment is that if there is significant contamination at that site B9, and we go ahead using this property for the location of the library, my guess is that it's going to take some time to both deal with the state and possibly the feds about the remediation there. So it could in fact have an impact on the library if access to remove a significant amount of soil has to go through the front of that site. And that's the only place that it could go. You don't have access to any other road other than going out to Leverett Road. So my recollection in the report is that there was a significant amount of soil removed when the feds did the initial cleanup, but obviously they didn't clean everything up, and it's unknown whether or not there is still a UST there, underground storage tank. So it could impact the library. If the library got built before all that remediation is done, then you could have a serious amount of traffic and material going through the front of that site.
Good point, Rita. Okay, Brad.
I'll start with Rita. Thank you for that. Being in the middle of my own septic installation that has to be back behind my property, I well understand there's going to be a huge amount of traffic going through our property to get that done. And so what you just said about that makes a huge amount of sense, that would be an impact on the library if it all happened after the library building started. But I wanted to mention something else too. Earlier, it had been reported, I forget where, that the Lotto 3-2 had a high water table and that would have an impact on septic building. Again, going through this with my own property, we have a somewhat high water table and it's buildable around, but it's not the ideal situation. It sounded to me like Lotto 47, is that right? The one behind Town Hall. To my knowledge, it didn't have that same issue with a high water table and would have an easier and most likely cheaper septic installation. Okay, thank you, Marianne.
Yeah, and Mark, OTO didn't do the perk test, but there was a good perk test behind Town Hall. We didn't see groundwater where we were doing the perk.
Yeah, I think I recall from the previous building program, maybe Marianne will remember, that we were going to have a raised septic system, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I recall.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else? Okay, Tim, again.
I had a vague recollection when I was on that visionary committee that I thought someone had said that there is actually an access to this property from another road, perhaps to the east of the property. Is that incorrect perception?
It does have road access to Pelham Hill Road. And, from looking at this, I'm not exactly sure where. Let's see, it might be between, it might be that piece of property right next to 78 Pelham Hill Road. but I'm not 100% sure. That doesn't have, you know, on this document, it doesn't have a lot number. And we can find that out, but that, you know, I mean, that looks like the only potential, and there isn't a road and it's fully wooded. So if there were going to be access, you know, there's some some people have visions of putting a little senior housing community at this south end of this property, which would be accessible through that road at Pelham Hill Road. So there'd be access through, you know, from Leverett Road or Pelham Hill Road, there'd be a road that went through. You know, but that would be down the line, you know, a little affordable housing, senior housing complex. There is a lot of wetlands back there. So yes, there is access to Pelham Hill Road, or, you know, or town access, but there isn't a road that goes in.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Melanie.
I'm sorry, which site is going to need the raised septic?
Lot 032.
Okay, thank you.
And my question is about this piece of property. Who owns that one that you're referencing? Anybody know? Town
Which
doesn't
one?
The one
Lot
you're
03.
talking about that's heavily wooded, that's between what appears to be
it's all town owned.
Oh, so this other little strip here is?
Oh, I don't know. So there is a
Hill
strip of land that the town owns that goes from Pelham Hill Road to Lot 032, but I don't know what it is from looking at this. I don't know that it's that one unmarked piece.
Okay. It's the only one that doesn't appear to have any house on it. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Alrighty. So there's some other questions. I didn't think I lowered my hand. Melanie, are you done? Are you have another question, Melanie? Do you have another question, Melanie? Your hand's still up. Okay, Brad.
Just to follow up on what Marianne would say, what Marianne said, I remember, like Tim did, I remember the presentation that discussed the access to Pelham Hill Road, but I agree with what Marianne was saying. If there's no built road right now through that property, that would be really expensive, and the town would likely, for that kind of remediation, want to go out the easy way rather than a very expensive road, even if it was a possible road. So I think that what Rita said still is very true, something we should be paying attention to. There's that issue of future traffic.
Okay, but Tim?
Those of you that worked on this in 2010, was your understanding of where the building would actually be sited, physically located? Would it preclude a temporarily dedicated path to the back end for this remedial traffic? And if it did not preclude that because of its physical location within the east-west boundaries, would that then solve the well-stated concern that Rita mentioned?
I was looking up who owns that piece of land next to 78 Pelham Hill Road, and I wasn't listening to you, Tim. Could you ask your question again? I'm sorry.
I don't know how much of the width of that property a library building would take up. My question is, would it preclude making a temporarily viable road to take care of anything in the back of the lot? Is that an issue, or are we saying it would have to drive across existing parking lots once the library was built? What would be logistics if we built the library based on how it was going to be located in 2010? What would be the logistics of getting traffic by it? Is it an easy task, or are we thinking of it as a major difficulty, or what?
So, so the plans in 2010 included, you know, included a road that went beyond the library into lot 032 for future development. So it, you know, so it didn't include the building of the road, but the road would go up to the library, to the parking lot, and then would kind of end with the idea that at some point in time it would continue. I think Rita's concerns were that if then, you know, remediation were to happen, it could be a sort of a protracted period of time where large trucks would be going back and forth carrying, you know, dump truck loads of soil. Is that what you were saying, Rita? Is that the library would then be subject to, you know, some period of time where that work was happening? It wouldn't be that the access was blocked. It would be that it would be sort of, I'm sort of picturing, you know, the Army Corps of Engineers, you know, and maybe that's really naive or optimistic visions of the, you know, the Department of Defense coming up here and clearing up their mess, or, you know, or a mess. I mean, we can't really say it's their mess until we actually figure that out. You know, but I think that's what Rita was just referring to. And you know, while you know, while a road to the library, so really a driveway to the library, and you know, then a library parking lot with the idea that that could then be extended, there was never a plan that it was going to be sort of industrial vehicles.
Right. Okay, Tim. Tim, would you?
Well, that was my question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, then, Brad.
Marianne said this at the end. I suspect, I don't know this fully, but I suspect the road, the driveway that would be designed and built for the library, even one designed for regular car traffic that would pass the library if something was ever built behind us, is not the same thing as the kind of road that would be needed for these massive trucks. I have the feeling that the traffic that would come through, the weight of the trucks coming through would require rebuilding the road, just because it would damage everything along the way.
Good point, Brad. Rita?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's what I was referencing, that, you know, if it had to come through Leverett Road, I didn't realize that was a town-owned parcel off of Pelham Hill, but
it's not. UMass owns that.
UMass owns that. So yeah, we don't know where.
We don't know where. Yeah.
Okay. So that isn't the access. So we don't know where the access is on that parcel, or if there is for sure access. The other, you know, having lived through the cleanup at the fire department and all the follow up to that, the cleanup at B9 is not going to happen quickly. So you can rest assured that the cleanup is going to happen if the library goes forward and you know, on the timeline that's been proposed, this cleanup will happen well after the library is built. So it becomes a, you know, something to consider. And I guess, you know, maybe tomorrow, and I'll check to find out, and Marianne, I assume you will too, like where is the town access on that parcel, and would it be realistic, and what would the costs associated with coming off of Pelham Hill Road? And always, you know, on any of these sites that we talk about, whether the access is from Pelham Hill or the access is from Leverett Road, you know, road building is expensive. You know, if there are wetlands, it's expensive. And if there's cleanup, it's expensive. So I can't remember what the final bill was on the fire station, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars for the cleanup of the underground storage tank. You know, we have a situation here with a lot of unknowns, and who has responsibility to pay for this cleanup could be a protracted negotiation, possible litigation to get it taken care of. So that's my only caution.
Good point. Kate? Kate?
Yeah, I was just trying to think how to say this, but so there's several kinds of problems that we face with this site. It seems to me there's a scientific analysis of the problem, right? What's actually there. There's a historical analysis that we need. There's a sort of legal analysis of who's responsible. There's a cost analysis of how much it would cost to build a road and remediate it. And then there's also a town support question, right? It seems, you know, to me that there, you know, these are real questions of how much people are willing to spend to support the construction of a library on this site, if it also requires, you know, a town contribution to the cleanup or to the construction of a road or whatever else it might involve. I think that's something we have to keep in mind as well. I mean, I hear that it shouldn't be part of the library project, and it probably needs to be cleaned up no matter what happens with the land. It's a town responsibility, but I'm concerned about the conflation of the, you know, the need for cleanup with the problem on the land.
Yeah, good point. Does anybody have any more questions for Mark or Erica?
Mark, can we go back to the well behind Town Hall? I'm going to stop sharing this. And Mark, you still with us? There you are.
Yes.
Can we go back to the well behind Town Hall? Because I don't remember if we talked about that. So let's see. So that is the groundwater results, and I'm gonna share those. And can you just comment on the groundwater at Town Hall and the results there, and what we found?
Sure. You can see we tested it for volatile organic compounds, PCBs, PFAS. Those are, you know, your chemicals that are like hazardous materials. No VOCs, no PCBs. We got a very trace amount of PFAS, just above the detection limit, which is kind of essentially considered almost like a background condition at this point. And the other compounds and elements below, the metals and your nitrates and chlorides, those were all within, you know, suitable drinking water standards, which are shown kind of in the far right column. So, you know, the water was clear. It seemed pretty like unimpacted by a release of oil or hazardous material.
This is good. So one other thing that that the town is planning to do is to put in some community gardens behind Town Hall, and if we put a library behind Town Hall, and again, these monitoring wells are serving a purpose. So these monitoring wells are actually still being monitored by some well monitoring people out there in the state. I think they're state people, people who work for the state. You know, one of those state agencies interested in water, and they're monitoring water levels, not so much water quality. They aren't testing. And you remember how long it took to get to the groundwater, to pump the water out of the well and get to the groundwater. So mostly we were just sort of testing the water to say, oh, is there potable water behind town hall if we put a well there? And there is, and then we could have water for the gardens, which would be really nice, because the plan for the gardens before was to have the fire department bring in, you know, fill up buckets of water from time to time, big buckets. So it's a relief that there's good water behind town hall. So thanks for pumping all that 250 feet of water out to get to the groundwater for us.
You're welcome. It was the water was about 50 feet below the ground surface on that one. But yeah, we had the pump running for 2 hours and we pumped out a lot of water.
Do you have another comment or question? No, I guess she didn't. Okay, Penny Kim.
Yeah, I'm just curious. We're talking about, should there have to be remediation on the one lot? There'd be a lot of truck traffic. I'm just wondering about the, I know this isn't part of the report, but the locating the site behind town hall and the width of that property. I'm just interested in knowing how we think about the access to the rear portion there. And certainly during construction, there'd be a lot of traffic. Is that part of your consideration, or how do we think about that? It's access to that rear part of the town hall parcel.
It's a really good question, Penny. I had the same thought. Would definitely have to be thought about and discussed. Rita, do you have a potential answer?
I don't have an answer, except to say that obviously would be, you know, factor into the select board's discussion and decision about the sites. You know, neither one of these sites has no issues. You know, so you know, we will rely upon the recommendation, or we will consider obviously the recommendation of the trustees when the select board discusses this on Tuesday night, and weigh all the pros and cons before we take any kind of action.
Okay, Tim.
This reference to what you're calling PFAS being just a hair over a guideline. Is that something that does or does not pass state water quality requirements? And if not, I'm assuming it's something that would have to be taken care of, and can it be taken care of?
The concentration we found was extremely low. This is 2.7 parts per trillion. The state guideline is 20 parts per trillion. So we're, you know, far below that guideline.
Thank you.
Okay, Savannah.
So I want to go back for a minute to what Kate was talking about in terms of the town's willingness to have that, to contribute to the cleanup, etc. I guess I wanted to know specifically if, for example, the library was not a consideration for lot 032, would there still have to be that cleanup if there were no exemption? And in which case, it seems like they're two separate issues.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, it's essentially a separate issue from the library on lot 032. You know, it's got to be addressed by some more work, either some more assessment and kind of some paperwork exercise, or assessment and remediation. There's a lot of unknowns that you just got to kind of get answers to satisfy DEP.
Right, and it's my understanding it's already been reported to DEP, right?
Well, so we've both, Becky and I have had conversations with the DEP, and the reporting is in progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, I wanted to ask some questions about process, and particularly since Rita's here tonight. And to the chairs of our board, is your idea that after the meeting tomorrow night, that we will try to make a recommendation for the select board? And is it the select board's idea that they would try to make a recommendation on Tuesday night? That sounds to me a little quick on all of this. Am I not correct in my understanding?
Well, we do have a meeting next Monday. I assumed that after we have the meeting tomorrow night that we'd be talking about it that Monday. What I assumed. We haven't really discussed that, but that was my assumption.
And Rita, how do you see the select board's process in terms of decision making on that?
Okay to speak. So it's on the agenda. Whether or not we decide to vote Tuesday night or not is not my decision. It will be the board's decision. You know, if the 3-member board decides that it needs more time to deliberate, then we would not vote on Tuesday night. I think if we feel like we have all the information that we need, then we would vote, but I can't tell you one way or another. I can only tell you that it's on the agenda, and it will be the board's decision.
Okay, Rita, if further questions should be asked, do you see it as the Board of Trustees' responsibility to do that, or for our responsibility to just take what we know so far, make our best recommendation, and then for the select board, if they feel the need, it would be their responsibility to dig deeper and ask more questions? Where does the responsibility in the process lie? That's my question.
I'm not sure I can answer that. You know, I think we would be looking to the trustees to come forth with a recommendation. If the trustees feel like they can't make a decision, it's going to be then up to the select board. A site needs to be, my understanding is a site needs to be identified before the December application deadline. So, and that there probably is some more due diligence that needs to be done, again, before that December deadline. So, you know, we're kind of up against what, you know, four weeks here, or a month, And so that's going to have some bearing, I think, on the timeline. You know, if the trustees can't come forth with a recommendation by Tuesday evening, then we will delay our decision making if there's more information, either that the trustees need to gather or that the select board needs to gather. Then we will do that, and we will take our vote when we feel like we have done all of our due diligence around the two sites.
Okay, I wanted to respond to that, if you don't mind. Mary Ann, if, for example, the Board of Trustees and the Select Board makes a recommendation which is included, which is given to the MBLC, and later, let's say January or February, Deeping Digger suggests to us that no, we should use an alternative location, not the one that we listed. do we have the flexibility at that point to make that change, or does that create a problem?
So there have been libraries in other communities that have needed to change their site after being awarded a grant, and they have been able to change their site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kate.
So just a point of process for this evening, we have guests who have given us an hour of their time already. Do we have, can I suggest we ask whether we have any more technical questions for them before we continue the rest of the trustees' work? Because maybe they could use a break.
I'm all set.
I have more technical questions.
Okay, go ahead. Was that Brad?
I was just saying I have no more technical questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were hard to hear. Does someone else have a question, or are we all set with what questions for?
I'm good for the moment.
And Erica.
Any of our guests?
Nope. Thank you very much. We appreciate your coordination and helping us out, seeing us in the field. We'll look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow night at the town meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Have a good night.
Very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Okay. The only other thing I had on the agenda is, it sounds like Tim's spreadsheet that he is still sort of in draft form, because no one else got to really check the numbers. I guess Marianne started to. I didn't get to check the actual numbers. It looked good to me, but no, I didn't have that.
Do you want me to share it?
Sure.
I could try sharing it.
I think if we don't make the decision about it tonight, and we can figure out how we want to present the information, and then vote on it on Monday.
Okay.
So this spreadsheet came about as a request or a question from a town resident wanting to know the comparison of the square footage of the present building program that we just are submitting in draft to the previous one. And then we also had the actual numbers from the schematic design. So Kim very kindly volunteered to put this all together.
Let's see, I'm looking for it. And
do you remember what day you sent it, Tim? I think you sent it.
No, I have it. I
Okay.
have it.
Okay.
I just have to. Okay.
I sent it out to everybody tonight.
Yeah, and I didn't realize everyone didn't have it yet, so that's why I put it on the agenda. I thought we were ready to at least discuss how we want to present the information.
Thanks for putting that together, Tim.
So Tim, since you developed this, you want to share the information, and we can figure out what makes sense that's understandable.
Basically, I wanted to compare the square footage from 2021 to the building program for 2010, as well as the schematic. My understanding was the schematic, which is a diagram in the 2010 application that has the square footage written in on each location. There's two things I wanted to look at. One was the difference between the 2010 building program and what happened after it got to the point of the schematic. Did the square footage increase or did it decrease? And I wanted to compare the schematic to the 2021 proposal, because my understanding is that the schematic square footage already incorporated anything that we would be putting under this 30% unallocated category in 2021. the thing that I wanted someone to double check was the schematic and building plan numbers from 2009 to make sure that I transferred them correctly and was understanding sheets that someone else may be more familiar with because they were working on that project 10, 11 years ago. I think everything's good, but I don't want to not have it double checked by somebody.
So I don't know how many of you got to look at it beforehand. So the schematic was basically once we started working with the architects. So the building program was like our ideas, our directions to the architect. And then once we started working with them, those were the actual numbers.
So Tim, can you just explain? So the column B is it's the numbers from the current building program, the area.
Those are straight off of Brad's worksheet.
Alrighty, and then column C, this is where I had trouble, you know, this is an awful lot of numbers and some of them are in parentheses and some of them are red and it was just too complicated for me.
Column C and D are simply comparisons. The first two columns to look at would be column B, our current situation, and column F, which is on the schematic. And I understand the schematic to have a total of 5,322 square feet. And our estimate of the, from the building program for 2021 with the 30% added is, let's see, 5,900 square feet, okay? But what I think we need to be concerned with is that when we add the 30% to our 2021 picture, that's probably not going to be what happens in reality. There was a small difference between the building program in 2009 and the schematic. And I think that we should probably pay attention to the square footage of the 2010 schematic compared to this area between the current assigned spaces in 2021 and a potential of addition of unassigned spaces, which is a number that we're just plugging for the moment because we don't know. It's very likely not going to be anywhere near 1,300 square feet is my understanding. Did that answer your question?
So this is one chart that Tim made, and then can I share a different one? And then because that chart doesn't do anything for me. It just confuses me. And I have a lot of experience with these two. So this is the new one, and then let's see, where is that other one? All right, then Tim made this one, and this one I liked. Let me see. And of course, you know, if other people might just be smarter than I am. So let me share this one. And it's this one, I think. So then Tim made this one, which has just the current building program and the square footage from the schematic. And then this is something where the numbers didn't add up for me, and I tried adding up the numbers and I didn't have time today. And then I think part of where the number might be off is the porch might have been in the total that I was looking at, and the porch doesn't have a number on it. So the porch might account for the square footage that's missing.
Marianne, could you make this a little bigger, please?
So which porch, Marianne?
Porch,
You're talking about
that's probably too big.
2010?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, let me look at it on this screen. Is this big enough or too big?
I'm a little confused because the porch doesn't have square footage on the schematic.
Right, it doesn't. So, so that's the porch I'm talking about, because I had a total from the schematic design from 2010, and it was 5,800 square feet, and then this came in at 5,300, which is encouraging. And then I think what's missing is the 5,851 gross square feet is the total that I have from the grant application. And I think the difference might be the porch, but I didn't have time to go through and see if you missed something or if I missed something. But if you look at this, and of course this one's easier and clearer because it's just 2 columns and everything is in black and there aren't any parentheses. Okay, Brad has a question.
Go ahead, Brad. Sorry, I was looking at the numbers.
I love charts, and I think I can understand what Tim is doing, but I haven't had any opportunity to look. And I feel like, particularly this late in our meeting, and given what you're saying, Marianne, I would rather put this off to Monday. It's hard for me to have any positive input, any useful input without having had a chance to look at it. And I question whether there really is a value of continuing today. And I would vote to bring it up again on Monday.
Okay, and then Kate, go ahead.
I really appreciate the work on both of these. I think, different ones may work for different brains, but in general, the red means it's less. Okay, it's the difference.
Right. No, I know that. It just was too much.
I understand. It's just hard. Some things work differently and better for some people than others. But I agree with Brad, and I think I will commit to spending some time over the weekend, doing my best to check the numbers, because that was one of Tim's requests that I haven't been able to fulfill yet. If there is a link to, I guess it's on the small library website, I can look at the schematic from last time.
It's not. It's not. We never had a digital copy of the schematic. We only had paper copies. If I could, I could see if I could get the architects to send it to us, or I could take it to town and get it scanned. It's
I can scan it. If I can have the binder.
No, you can't scan it. It's too, because it's too big to fit on unless you've got a big fancy commercial scanner.
Oh, no, I don't.
Yeah.
It's bigger than, you can't.
Yeah. No, it's a big, it's a big.
I have a suggestion. Why don't I have the schematic. The only thing I don't have is whatever Marianne's referencing to that includes square footage for the porch. So I can bring what I have to anybody's house that wants to double check it together, and then we'll have everything in front of us. If anybody wants to do that with me.
I'd be glad to do that on Sunday with you, Tim, if it's what you need. When you said double check, I'd love to know just if specifically, is that what's helpful to you or something else?
Well, I've already done the numbers from the schematic that are in that column twice. I think the confusing issues Marianne's looking at something that had the porch area included as well. So
Okay.
it sounds like two heads have to be put together to decide, okay, should the porch area be included, and what is that number? Because I have no idea what the number is.
Right, and it's not, and if that may just be the, you know, that might be the explanation. It might just be that I need to go through the numbers one more time, and that, you know, I went through. I just need to go through it again more carefully, and then check it against your numbers, and then that might be the explanation to why.
No, I'm willing to help anybody. You know, Marianne, can just do it quickly over the phone, or anything that works.
Okay. If we could do that at the top of the meeting on Monday, because we have a bigger thing to, but I think it's really going to be important because that stuff is, those questions are out there. I personally like the more information because I feel like the other one's too simplistic, and I like showing, and I want everybody to think about this, how you are able to read it and understand it, because what I like is seeing the building program and how it changed with the schematic so that people understand ours will probably be different as well. It's not, it's our building program. It's going to change, you know, because they have efficiencies and all of that like they did last time. It didn't go up.
And what might help is if Tim just explained the titles to me, and that if we just changed the titles of the columns.
Yeah.
And I just haven't had time to go through it.
It's okay. Yeah. It's just the way it worked out today. But anyway,
yeah.
So I will email that person and say that we still need a little more work and it won't be ready till next week, but just so they know.
So who wants to double check it? Do you want to do that with me, Marianne, or Kate?
Yeah.
Or
so why don't we just have a conversation? I mean, do other people understand the titles? I think if you explain the titles to me, and then if we can make it so that I understand it, then I think anybody can understand it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I understood it, but if it doesn't work for everybody, it has to be understandable to most people,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And the answer there might be to verify the numbers and then make 2 sheets available to people. Whichever flavor of the month they like, then they can look at that.
Right. Well, or if we just have an explanation at the top of the column of what it is, so that
my only suggestion is a really simple one, and then I'll let Brad go. If you could make the words, the names wrap, so you can condense your Excel spreadsheet so it's not so big because it won't fit on a, it needs to be a legal size. That's my only recommendation.
Okay.
And if you know what I mean, I'd be happy to work with that piece once you get your numbers verified. Because
I wasn't printing it, so I never checked the printing.
Yeah, well, I like to have stuff in print to actually look at it because my eyes get too tired.
Yeah, I'll do a print test before we use before that's done.
Okay, Brad, and then we should probably close in a minute or so. Go ahead, Brad.
If you would like someone to look over to double check numbers, I'm happy to look over the schematic and just double check. But I would need a copy of the schematic to do that.
Well, let me straighten that out with Marianne, this thing about the porch. And then probably that was not a bad idea. I can run over to your house with the schematic and everything, or you could come over here. We could just sit down and do it together real quick, just as an added security, because it's something that's going to go out to the public. Sounds good.
So we can talk about this stuff.
Great. Sounds good.
Topic.
All right. So tomorrow night we'll see each other again, and then Monday night. Oh, Melanie, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a totally unrelated question for the October 24th meeting minutes. Should the letters themselves be sent to Grace to be attached to the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So not just a list of the letters, but also the letters.
Because I did summarize them quickly. So yeah.
Okay.
And we don't have, the letters that I forward you, we don't generally have to. It's just that a couple people wanted it to be in the public record. So I thought, okay, since I'm doing that, I'll just do all the ones we just got, but we don't have to do that every time. So
okay. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I was doing it correctly. I was listing them at the end, and then I'm going to actually send her the physical letters.
Just if we sit and go over them like I did. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
talk about tomorrow. So we didn't have a huge amount of people from the public here tonight. If you have more questions that come up between tonight and tomorrow, you know, Mark and Erica will be here to answer those questions again. But in any case, I guess I don't know. I just think we'll just see how many people show up and how many questions there are, and then see how long the meeting needs to be. Right? I don't know what else to do with tomorrow. So
I would hope we don't have a meeting that runs on too late. I find the longer they go, the less useful they are.
Yeah, hour and a half is like it. That's what it's
yes. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
So maybe we can say that that's our time frame, and that, you know, we'll just do our best to give everybody a turn. If somebody keeps raising their hand, maybe we can skip them and go to somebody who hasn't had a chance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we could announce sort of a progressive stack, which is, you know, where you do, like, if someone has spoken more than once, then you say, all right, I'm going to go to the next person because they haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Yeah, maybe those could be the housekeeping so people understand. Because, yeah, sometimes people do tend to dominate sometimes. So, well, I'm tired. See you guys tomorrow.
All right. Thank you all.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Okay. Good job, Tim. Thank you.
All right.